Good afternoon, sorry. My name is Beatrice. I'm currently working in Melbourne, but I studied and grew up in Malaysia. I think most of us here grew up in Malaysia. And for 50 years or so, our parents and us and our grandparents lived with all races. So whether consciously or subconsciously, we live in a multicultural country, and we tolerate, we learn to respect other people's cultures. I think we're talking a lot about integration and how to improve growth and development in our country. I personally feel that I think one of the most important things that really starts integrating all of us would probably be education and sports. I'm pretty sure whenever we watch Thomas Cup and we see Lee Chong Wei play, we just support us and call Malaysia Boleh. We don't say,
Miss your question?
Okay, my question, leads back to education, which means, I know that it starts from education, but right now we have so many different types of school in Malaysia. We have Chinese school, we have Tamil school, we have Islam school, and private and semi-private. And that sort of already caused some sort of segregation. People go to Chinese school and then go to Tamil school. That sort of increases the gap as well between our races. So how do you, with the new policy, how do you see to close that gap in improving the education system? Yeah, thanks.
Very pertinent question. All the more because the education blueprint is already about to be stable, finalized, despite that panel review led by my good friend Tan Sri Zulkifli Razak has not been properly deliberated and critique or feedback been taken care of or incorporated. I would just register of the importance of understanding this issue to be a very divisive, unending debate. And I don't envy the government of the day, because it is a really gigantic task to undo perhaps all the shortcomings of the system. However, principally, while we would like to propel into a top-notch education system, but at the same time there's a lot of constraint, not the least is what you have said earlier, over the need to democratize it, and to respect for national type school, sekolah rendah jenis kebangsaan Cina Tamil, dan juga these are vernacular schools, but as well as the religious schools, sekolah agama rakyat. Now, this is it. There is no one size fits all kind of thing. And because of that, I believe that there must be there is no immediate solution to this, and not just politics, even education is so complex in Malaysia. Because of our, very plural makeup. However, I believe finally in the solution that will have to take account of all the various needs, and it has got to be on a needs-based basis, much as affirmative action to move away from race-based into needs-based, as well education. There are people who are looking for, they need that kind of education that is perhaps some are looking for English-based stream. And would our national school be now English-based, or rather English as the English stream school, or what? And it is so diverging and at times so, as I said, divisive. Now, what is the final solution? What is the shape of things to come? I think this is why we must always be engaged. And finally, to me, it is the ability to respect the needs of all. and there surely cannot be one size that fits all. Thank you.
At this point, of course, now during my generation, I can safely say that although there existed schools, Chinese, Indian, Chinese school, Tamil schools, and Malay schools, during that time, I don't think there was much problem of unity, problem of lack of cohesion among members of my generation. It's only the current generation now. So I believe this issue of existence of various schools cannot be a sole factor. It's more things are more complicated than that, because just because you are placed in the Chinese schools, for instance, you don't come out thinking very racially. It has to be what happens in society. When you come out, what you see, what happened in the course of your education. All these things has a bearing, because right now you see a lot of even Malays, I would say, they are registering their children to seek education in the Chinese schools. So if you do away with these schools, it doesn't mean that you are going to achieve unity. The overall structure of the society has to be of a certain, I won't say it's very sensitive, of course, but it's related to what happened in the society at large. Thank you.
There's no problem, except one. In Malaysia, leaders are lembe. They don't have any belief, You see, like education, it's not a problem. We never had a problem before. We have produced some very good students. Zai Ibrahim, So there's no problem. But when leaders lembe, they have become victims of political pressure. So the education system failed because they come up with so strange ideas, forget about English. They know, their children are all in England, they know it's important. Some of them sent to Singapore, I can tell a few. So they are hypocrites, they are lembe. So they abandon something's good, although they know it's good, but they keep on, because the Rakyat suffer, bodoh is okay. So to come back to your question, it's not multi-religious, not vernacular school. If I want to send my son to Tamil school, it's up to me. But if the Tamil school is so bad like now, I don't see anybody who wants to send his children to Tamil school. Same thing with Chinese school, same thing with religious school. If there's no quality, they cannot find jobs after graduation. They will send to the national school. The problem is our national school is so bad. So the solution is make sure our national school is really good. No weak teachers, no weak syllabus, strong curriculum, good teachers, well-qualified teachers. That would bring everybody back to national school. So I think the fact that there are vernacular schools, I think is just an excuse. They just don't want to make the hard decision of making the national school really up to scratch. But now, of course, we have the blueprint. I don't know, looks good on paper. But in Malaysia, everything's good on paper. So I praise Mayude. I said, good. Well, at least we have something on paper. But from paper to implementation is, of course, so we hope that will be all right. MCA can make sure it's done properly.
It's not vernacular school per se. I can tell you, if today we do not have Chinese in Malaysia, the Malays politicking will be more intense among themselves, and maybe even worse. Basically, ultimately, is many other factors are involved. You see, Mahathir tries to, after realizing that because education has been overly politicized, culture, language in 69 is basically language. So when they try to do the Wawasan school, the opposition comes from Dong Jiao Zhong and supported by DAP. So similarly, many Malays would like to prescribe the closure of Chinese school as a simplistic solution towards unity. All these are too simplistic. It's more complicated than that. And the right for mother tongue education has to be there, because for various reasons, identity, sentiment, etc. This you cannot deny the rakyat of this right, and it's been entrenched in the constitution. So despite the fact that we are not supposed to question vernacular school, you still see politicians coming out to say, "Oh, we close as a solution towards unity." But it's ultimately education. It's not the medium of or the language. It's basically education. Those days, the colonial school, the English teachers, the masters who are trained in England, those are the teachers that teach us unity, the crux of unity, respect, etc. I think basically we lost that generation of teachers. And in all of us, if you can see, those who come from the colonial school, we are very accommodative and very tolerant towards one another. Thank you.
This question is for Dato' Zaid Ibrahim, and I've been following you since 2007, since you write the book Saya Pun Melayu. I've been reading that book, and I'm sure that you're a man of principle. You've been consistent with principle throughout the years. But what I'm worried about right now is that you joined UMNO and you have been the Minister of de facto law, and then you join PKR, and then you join Parti Kita, and then you get out from Parti Kita. So my question is that the rhetoric of having a no race, the unity Malaysia is very cool to hear, right? But how does the failure of you to impose that belief and principle in the party that you join right now suggest that it's very difficult for the political party right now to depart from all of this problem, this race-based and religious-based issue? You got my question, right? So yeah, I hope you can answer.
Well, firstly, I did not leave UMNO, okay? You get it right. I was sacked. That's different. People try to make light of my political struggle by implying or imputing that I couldn't. No. I left. I did not leave UMNO. I fought for many, many years against ISA, against preventive detention, against all this corruption and all that. And I was suspended. I had to go through all that. I was suspended, I was dropped as a candidate. So I have endured, okay? Don't think that I just changed because I couldn't get my way. I was sacked. And then I joined PKR. I joined PKR because I said, if I were to leave this organization that's in power, if I were to leave this position of power, it must be for something more noble, more consistent. Why would I leave for something less? So, without going through too many stories, gory stories, I found that it's just another social party. Okay, so I started my own. There's nothing wrong about starting something. And then I realized I didn't have enough money. Because political parties in Malaysia need a lot of money. And I was disappointed I couldn't get enough support from people who think like me. People who join Kita, like the guy you saw on your. That guy was not even a Kita member. But because he was close to RTM and TV3, he's an UMNO operator. He used that name to discredit other UMNO fellows like Nazri, using my name. That's how dirty politics is. So you cannot always believe what you read. You have to ask me. So, my only failure, I think, is Kita. I admit it, because I couldn't raise enough money. I couldn't attract the kind of intellectual people who believe that this is all crap. All this Melayu, this, that, they're all politicians who wants power. So let's talk politics for what politics is. So I wanted to raise sufficient awareness, consciousness, but I couldn't raise enough traction. The people who join me are people like, who just wants another party. And so, but I still have Kita. I haven't left Kita, okay? Kita is still under my control. If you want to join, you can stay, but you must have money. Or principal. Or both. I still have Kita. I still have control of the party. It's a small party, but I will wait for my time. Maybe when Dr. Zul cannot become mainstream fast, I will welcome him to join Kita. But at the moment, because he says with confidence that he is mainstream past, I wish him luck. And I would like to see just a correction, because I did not say PAS should abandon Islam. I said PAS should open up. That's what I said. PAS should open up even to non-Muslim. If a non-Muslim lawyer can appear before a Sharia court because he qualified as a Sharia lawyer, why can't a non-Muslim in Malaysia join a party like PAS? So all I'm saying is, PAS should, if you want to fight UMNO, you should open up. So I hope I answer your question. I'm still a politician. I'm still fighting for what I believe. I still talk a lot. And I have not abandoned any of those things. It's just that I don't have enough money, that's all.
Good afternoon. I'm Muhammad Shakib. I'm actually from Sekimbangan, somewhere out the outskirts of Kuala Lumpur. And I have 3 questions. My first question to the MCA representative. I don't see the rationale and logic. Why would MCA would not assume any federal positions or state legislative positions in order to represent the interests of the Chinese, in order to bring about the impact that's necessary, especially knowing that the Chinese have not supported the governing coalition at this point and have fallen to the agenda of DAP. My second question is to Dr. Zul. Acknowledging that PKR or Pakatan Rakyat, for that matter, with PAS and DAP, are fighting for equality of all Malaysians, imposing needs-based policy for poverty and etc., in buku jingga and etc. Assuming that there is a majority in the parliament from Pakatan Rakyat's representatives, say the next election, say it's a simple majority, then you need to pass very important amendments in the constitution that would necessarily ensure there will be equality, meaning among many, annulment of 153, or maybe some compromise on 153. And I believe that the UMNO as an opposition will fight tooth and nail to make sure that that would not pass. Yeah. So my question is...
For the third question, you only have 2 minutes to ask.
Thanks.
Sorry.
Right. So my question is, what would Pakatan do in order to get enough votes to bring about the equality if the reality is that you can't necessarily bring that about if UMNO is going to fight tooth and nail with you in the parliament to not allow you to pass the legislation to bring about the equality that you want? Third question is to Dr. Zaid. This question is on the issue of double standards, but double standards in education. The only reason I asked you this question is of twofold. First, because you've been a corporate executive yourself, having found Zaid Ibrahim & Co. Second, having been a minister, so looking at it from a policy perspective.
I really need you to conclude your question.
Okay, just 1 minute.
All right.
Just 1 minute.
Not 30 seconds, no.
Alright. I'm a graduate from Faculty of Law UiTM, your own alma mater, Dato'. I realized since the first session this morning, a lot of local graduates have been receiving, or local undergraduates, a lot of bashing on the fact that we're never good enough, we don't have an open perspective like overseas grads. I think that's unfair. The reason being is because the blame lies in the lack of critical academics that exist in the Faculty of Law UiTM or any other faculty for that matter. I've competed with overseas graduates in multinational corporations as well, and I see that local graduates can offer much more in terms of the culture, in terms of getting work done fast. Maybe we have drawbacks as well in terms of our intellect capability, but that's only because the systemic indoctrination of what we learn in UiTM, the kind of no academic freedom, like what happened to Professor Aziz Bari, which UiTM lectures will have to kowtow as well, as critical as such.
I think the question is set, because it's very clear. It's about, I really need to stop that because we only have a limited time.
Alright, 10 seconds, man. 10 seconds. I'm going to get to the question.
I really need you to stop that.
The decision was made, basically was proposed in the AGM. And during that time, the argument was in 2008, a lot of our seats we lost to our own internal bickerings. In the sense that there is only one person who can be a candidate. Many people want to aspire to be candidates. So the challenge was thrown to them. Well, whoever is chosen, you have to work together. Otherwise, we are all out of the government. That is more like sending a message that we have to work in unity to ensure that we continue to be part of the administration. Because many a time we lost it to our local warlords, the Ketua Kampung, etc., who have their own sentiments. So that was the rationale. And the other thing was, we are also trying to tell the public, many Chinese community, whenever they face any sort of problem, they'll come to MCA. and they want MCA to deliver. They always complain that we cannot deliver. They always complain. So we are saying that you cannot come to us with problem. At the same time, you're not giving us the mandate. How can we go to the round table and negotiate or speak on behalf of the community when you are not getting the mandate? So that was the other argument. So it's vice versa after the event. Many of us, I do not agree then with that decision. It's not that, but we are going to table this same back to the AGM, the delegates. You see, the problem with MCA, we are overly democratic. We are always allowed with too many democratic process to the extent that sometimes the ground do not actually know what is politically correct. So sometimes, and we are still very feudal, and many people, they are just talking of the bread and butter issues. They are not, you see, what has happened of late among the Chinese community is because of the social media, the ability to articulate political issues, etc. Everybody suddenly has a voice and start making judgment and decision based on their perspective. But in real politics, in actual politics, there are many other factors that comes into play. So that was the decision made. It may be a wrong decision after in hindsight, but I think you are correct in thinking.
Equality. How would we go about effecting it? It would be suicidal, political suicide, a political suicide for UMNO, for that matter, in the construct of a new politics, to ever challenge the timeless principle of equality, justice, and whatnot. That we all, regardless of where you stand in the political divide. So it's just not simply about amending the Constitution. It has first to occur, it has first to effect, what is important is to have first an intellectual revolution, an intellectual change, a shift from being parochial, from being racist, to accepting timeless universal principle of equality, justice, and women. So I wouldn't ever imagine, in the scheme of things to come, that UMNO or the BN will ever dare to challenge. Dr. T, please could you vouch for that? For MCA, for Gerakan, and as well have UMNO. When it comes to moving forward to have a better Malaysia, and equality is about the demand and the need of the time, I think all of us will be for it, regardless of where in the political divide you stand. So to me, that's not a big issue. It does not make me as a Malay and a Muslim less of a Malay and less of a Muslim to challenge Article 153. I think that you should enlighten us on this further being coming from your legal background. But I must say again that we stand on our common policy framework, and this is one of the things that we want to achieve. And we don't think that UMNO will dare challenge us, if ever it comes to fruition, that we table such motion. But I think equality is just not about constitutional or legalistic thing. It is about the mindset, the ability to embrace justice and equality first internally, then coming to all the needs of the constitutional arrangement and whatnot. Dr. Z, perhaps earlier, I must make a correction. I did not mean you, I was meaning that T, that he's asking us to debunk Islam.
Don't worry, we work very closely.
Your friend.
At least last election, I don't know about the question about 153. Pakatan, even if it comes to power, they don't have to disturb 153. 153 is just an enabling provision. If the government feels that there's certain things we need to be done to help movies, they can do so. In a very limited source. So it's an enabling, you don't have to repeal it. Because Article 8 already says so. Article 8 already provides that we are all equal. What happened in Malaysia, because leaders are so weak, they dare not read Article 8 properly. You see, they're so scared. You see, so it's about time we have new leaders like Dr. Zhou in the next election. But first he must overcome the elements in his own party, of course. I think that's not a problem. I think there are some students from ITM good, some are not. The problem with the leaders in the ITM, the chancellors, the deans, they are so takut, their jobs may get taken over by somebody else. So they start talking politics. You see, in Malaysia, if you are mediocre, you talk politics. No, I'm not talking politicians here. Politicians are generally mediocre anyway, but I'm talking about lecturers, academics, civil servants, senior civil servants, teachers, director of education. If you are mediocre, how do you go up? You talk politics. So the same thing is institutions of learning. You know, like right here, I think the problem is the exposure. The problem is different kind of discipline, different kind of openness that you need, different kind of teachers. I think students are great. So I think the problem, is that once you come to Melbourne, you'll be all right. You know, you open up your new vistas of things. So that our problems in our country is always leadership, in every level. So if you want good lawyers, good law students, you must have good teachers. You want good teachers, you must have good deans, good chancellors, and so on and so forth.
If Victor, can you put on yeah. So the first question is: the Age Business Weekly noted that Malaysia has the highest number of public service employees, standing at 4.68% of the population compared to regional peers Indonesia, Philippines, and Thailand. And according to a 2011 UN survey, employees in the Prime Minister Department swelled from 25,000 around that much during 4 years to 45,000, which increased to 71.9%. As at the time of the survey under Najib administration. If the job can only be created but not destroyed, this will not only exacerbate the existing efficiency but also strain the government coffers, which will negatively affect the Malaysian sovereign rating. In fact, this risk is too real to be neglected. Najib himself has disclosed in 2011 pre-budget debate that only 5.6% of the population is paying income tax. Under such situation, do you think that the government should do such a reform of the entire public service? And if it's possible at all to carry out such reform? I think Deputy Commissioner Mr. Han can have an insight on this.
Okay, in the first place, I cannot answer this question. If I answer this question, I'll be looking for a job. Okay. On a more serious note, now, I was with the MECC in 1982. Now, during that time, you will know I was in one section called the Special Investigation Section. Okay, we got about 15 officers, 15 to about 20 officers in the section that I was, So that was in 1980s. During that time, you need to do about 5 cases or 6 cases a year, And then we can arrest 3 officers, medium management level. You can celebrate for the whole year, because that is your key performance indicator. You have done very well. You are very proud of it. The whole department will probably talk about you guys. You got 3 cases. But today, I can tell you, that is no longer the benchmark. Today, for instance, a few weeks ago, before I was here, one of our section, we seized 14 cars. I think you already know in the papers. In the 1982, I don't think we even seized 1 car. So the amount of work that we guys are doing nowadays is tremendous. I would say that we have over benchmark ourselves now. That is very normal. If today you tell me, Tuan, we have arrested an inspector, he received $5,000. To me, no big deal. I just say, okay, good. That's all. No. But those days, where I was starting work, you get arrested, let's say a police inspector, even for 2,000 bribe or 200 bribe, it's a big thing, it's practically the whole states, the whole officer, very happy, celebrating, But today, our benchmark is so high because we are not only trying to look for in terms of arrest, we are trying to look in terms of property, seizure, amount of bribes. Of course, the cases have increased tremendously. So we are talking about a different level of playing field. That is why even our boss's expectation of us is very high. We can no longer say, and right now, MECC today, I would say that there is a shortage of staff because we have set up very high targets for us to achieve, tremendously high targets that I would say MECC officer today, we are overstressed. We are everywhere, even my assignment here, that's why when you come to my room, there's one word written there. We are the true SEAL, S-E-A-L. Okay, thank you.
Frankly, I don't intend to run down the government. You know, I don't think there's not intention to run down the government, because I think they have run down themselves enough. But beyond the issue of MACC is the issue of an effective government by way of governance, by way of value of money. Look, from the time of Pala to Najib, look at the increment. And if you benchmark against population and ministers that are around, I think Indonesia is almost 10 times more effective than us, because they have more or less the same number of ministers and yet 10 times more population. And even if you compare to Australia and others. So I think there is and of course on corruption. Yeah, Ernst and Young's survey of trans-Pacific countries, you saw that, yeah? We are just about the worst, yeah, on the issue of how corrupt we are. And that was 17 years later. We were in the first study of Transparency International, CPI, we ranked 6th, and now we have gone down to 11. So what has gone wrong? I mean, it's just not about the MACC, it's about a government that's not committed to deliver what they promised. I think we are really, I'm not speaking as an opposition leader here, but I think in all fairness to the taxpayers, we really got to size up, or size out, because I think value for money, we have got a double X size government. I'm speaking this not at all from the public is Malay dominated, the private is other ethnic, Chinese or Indian. It's not about that. It's about looking into how we can really turn around this nation, so endowed with resources. We are, according to World Bank, one of the richest country on earth by way of resource per capita, over 28 million sharing this. But once we were twice having a per capita income that of South Korea. Twice of them in the 60s. Now they are 3 times more than us. So all this is about having an effective government that deliver what they vouch to do. So that as an addition to Mr. Han.
Do you believe in the reform? Is there any, or the reform is possible or not? So maybe one of you can answer.
The reform is not possible because we have about, 3 million civil servants, maybe 4. Now that's almost like 25% of the voters, or 25% of the voters. So if you work for me, you're going to vote for me, would you? So it's not about governance, it's not about asset, rich, poor, reform, it's about voting pattern. So the civil service will continue to expand. You can give all your figures, you can give all your comparative figures, other countries are like this, other countries, Malaysia is not incorporated. You understand?
Endless possibilities.
It's endless possibilities as well. So if you, I don't want to dampen your spirit, but I don't think he will reform this sort of thing, because civil service is a good, I'm not saying every one of them, because voting are the secret cards. But generally, if you work for the government, you're going to vote for the government. So I think it's the interest of UMNO to keep the numbers bigger and bigger and bigger. Okay, thank you.
So now you know why Dr. Syed was sacked.
Datuk Zaid was a minister during part last time when they decided to accommodate. There's a lot of undergraduates who has no jobs. And in Malaysia, you don't blame the government. When I'm in the hotel line, they don't want to engage locals. They prefer a bangla. We are getting lazier and lazier. We are getting more selective. And the mentality is such that many people, especially among the Malays, they wanted to work with the government department. And they go to job interviews, they say, I don't want so far, I want to work with, and I know overtime, etc. They dictate, they give conditions. So these are problems, not the government problem. These are individual. If today all graduated and you have no job, the government has to step in if there is a big number. So we started with a caring government, accommodating, and this is the problem. And ultimately, nobody says the government cares. They say the government is not. There's no good governance. So I believe if past take over, or even Anwar take over, they will posture to the same demand, because that is the demand of the Malays in particular. They want a government job. Thank you.
I think they said that the current government will not able to operate the reform. So they are saying that the current ruling government right now. So what do you think?
It's politics. What Dato' Zaid is saying, because he wants to change the government. So he's telling you, if you don't change the government, this will not be overcome. By the time you change the government, it may be even worse. So coming back, if you want to change, we have to change the attitude of the people, the rakyat. We have to tell them the government no longer, you see, like for example, those taking loans, refusing to pay, and now they are saying, Anwar is saying that, okay, we take over the government, you don't have to pay. We are actually promoting non-accountability. On one hand, they say, oh, accountable, good governance. On the other hand, they're bribing the youngsters who are reaching their own ways, but they refuse to pay 1,000 or 100 or few $100 back to the government or the loan they take. But nobody comes out and says, Anwar is doing political bribing. Everything blames it on the government. Even collecting debts from students who took loan from the government is also, the government is a bad government. Kejam sungguh. This is politics.
As a government, don't worry about opposition, but they're not in government. You can speculate the words, you can speculate this, and you can do all that. But you are a government, you must have responsibility. And when you see figures like this, you must at least make some effort. You see, when our Prime Minister stands up and says, hey, we're going to trim down the civil service, he must do something. When the Prime Minister says we're going to sell off some of the assets of the GLCs because it's draining on government, and this is his exact word, government's not always good in business, why don't you sell them? So all I'm saying is, I'm not being political, I'm being cynical, yes. But that's because there is no effort. You must try. If you say that we're going to be fair to everybody, you don't come back and say we're going to give 35 billion to some more Malays. You know, things like that. You want leadership. We want leadership. And I'm just speaking not as a politician, because I already tak jadi as a politician, but as a rakyat. We want leadership from government. That's what we want to say. Thank you.
And some structure. My name is Sharifa. Well, Smitty touched upon the fact that political parties they find it very hard to move away from race-based politics. I'm going to shift your attention to the voters instead, and this question is directed to Dato' Zaid Ibrahim. So, given the outcome of the GE election, particularly in terms of voting trends, which is significantly marked by greater complexities at all angles of analysis, and there seems to be more trends towards cross-ethnic voting. Would you categorize this as Malaysian voters, especially like already on the go of letting go of race-based politics, and do you see this trend as being sustained in the future? Terima kasih.
As much as I see some not healthy signs in the country, there are positives as well. And I think the outcome of the election, 2008 and 2013, I think the trend is there. I think the younger generation, I am not so hopeful about my gang. I mean, we are quite sad, you know. Some of us are like this, some of us are like this. But I think the bulk of the voters will be the young. And I think the young are prepared to try for new things, prepared to go for the unusual, for the alternative views, I think. So, I think even if you see, if you look at the last election, you know, I have, in all the years in politics, I have never seen so much racist taunting, racist remarks, racist headlines, speeches, never. Which means to say that UMNO is worried now that the Malays might not be able to hold on to the Malays. Which means they have to go on this path. And I think they're mistaken. They may have succeeded 2013 because perhaps because opposition also lebih kurang kacau sikit lah. Not sure where they're going, you know. So, but I think, come the next election, I think the opposition hopefully will become more solid, more focused, more consistent, and I believe this extremism, whether it is in racial, whether it's religious overtone, I think tak laku. My view is tak laku in most places in the world. I don't see Malaysia being so special. This is what I call tak laku ideas. You know, this is daunting, this extremism, this religious extremism. Ini semua tak laku. Desperate ideas, hoping they can resuscitate their power. But I think as we get more and more younger voters, as the world opens up, as the internet opens up, as people learn to read a lot of things besides Ustaz Azhar Idros, you know, when they start reading a lot more things, I think there is hope. I believe so.
You said that MACC face when it comes to combating corruption is in order to win the public perception, right? So I don't think that the public is being too paranoid with MACC, because we see that the recent AG Auditor General report saying that there's a lot of dodgy claims and a lot of ketirisan, we call that, right? So, and this is what most scary. The scary part of this is not only happened this year. It has been happening for the past years. So I think the public have the right to feel something is wrong with the methodology in combating corruption. So can you just explain to us the MCC role in combating this problem in the ketirisan government here?
Something you need to understand about the Auditor's General Report. A lot of things that is mentioned in the Auditor General Report is due to mismanagement, non-compliance of procedures. You know, in fact, over the years, what MACC has discovered is a lot of cases that were referred by the Auditor General Office to us. You know, we could not end up with any prosecution. Not much prosecution could be done. You know. Of course, there are some prosecution, but overall, the general problem is, of course, mismanagement, abuses, non-compliance, officers take things in their own hand, and these things which are non-criminal in nature, you know, lack of feasibility studies. Nevertheless, one of the key government initiatives is, of course, is to have, usually the audit report was only published, you know, or made known once a year. But the government has made efforts to make sure that this audit report is tabled 3 times, you know, yearly. And MACC, in fact, even before the audit report is out, we sit closely with the audit department, in fact, to go through various issues. And we find that a lot of matters that the audit raised is due to lack of supervision, lack of monitoring. You know. But sad to say, you know, somehow we end up holding the baby as usual. And then the public expect to see blood, which is sometimes beyond us. See, we can investigate, but we cannot investigate based on perception. We cannot charge people based on perception. We have to charge on hard rules of evidence and based on evidence. But sometimes this is not forthcoming. You know. That is the actual scenario. And even with the recent audit reports, I can see that this is likely to take place. You know. It's difficult to make out cases of criminal offences. You know.
Good morning, my name is Aris. I'm currently 16 years old. I'm doing high school in Melbourne. Before I like to start my question, I'd just like to apologize in advance if my question is foolish or just because of my young age, I think. So I think Dr. Zaid Ibrahim talked a lot today about how leaders are lembek and how the leaders we have today aren't the best that we necessarily need for the future of Malaysia. And I think I'd like to know what you think in particular that we can do to achieve better leaders in the future, especially with Generation Y. And also another question is, I think many of my friends, Singaporeans and Malays, which are interested in politics, are kind of scared to get into politics in respect to if they have the perception that if you want to rank up in politics or even in the national service that you have to be dirty or corrupted and you have to use money to get your way up. And I think I'm not sure if that's true or not, it's just a perception of, I think, my circle of friends overseas. So I don't know how it is in Malaysia at the moment. So I'd like you to comment on this. Thank you.
But you must join for the right reason. You know, and I cannot tell you what's the right reason. If sometimes you join politics because it's good for your business. If that's your reason, then you join politics for business. I can only speak from my own experience, which is not very good. You see, politics for me is about service. It's about fighting for the ideal, for what is right. Because I believe there is such a thing as right and wrong. But I also know, because I've been involved for so long, that sometimes it's difficult choices one has to make. It's not always black and white. So it's up to you. You ask the question. Is this the line that you are prepared to take? And then if you say this is the line, then that's where you go. Some people can have a higher threshold. Some people have a higher threshold for corruption. Then it's up to you. I don't. I think to me, if the leader is stupid, I say so. Because I have low tolerance as well. So to join politics, you must know why you want to do it. But there's always the ideal, there's always the good thing. The second, Dr. Zul has his own utopia about, politics. So he joins us, you see, for example. So you should join as a young man. I don't want to tell you that you should. That's the only way the world can change, by effecting change in public policies. But of course you can change other ways as well, by being Bill Gates and things like that, but I'm saying, that's one way. About your question about leaders, how do you get good leaders? I think you must first want to have good leaders. You see, some society have a high tolerance for corruption. I mean, for example, if I'm a Wanita delegate, I wouldn't vote for Shariza, for example. But she probably will win again. And some people will have high tolerance for certain things, So it depends on the people. The people determine the quality of leaders we have. If you have a high tolerance for corruption, for people who abuse power, and sometimes you have high tolerance, for example, in this country, in Australia or in England, if a minister or a parliamentarian says something that's wrong or misleading, people view that very seriously. People take that integrity thing very seriously in certain societies. But in our country, you can bullshit, and get away with it. I've seen ministers and senior leaders in parliament talking absolute nonsense and get away and menang lagi. So it depends. So to answer your question, the leaders can be what they are, the people will decide. For so long as the people want that type of leaders, that type of leaders will be. If you don't want this type of leaders, then those leaders will. Depends on the values of society, depends on the voters.
Yeah, okay.
Just a question regarding this is going to be addressed to especially Zaid and T Lien no. Okay, anyway, just something I noticed. There's actually not much discussion about trying to understand the cultures individually. There's always talking about systems, about the processes that take place in politics. There's not much discussion about trying to take a deeper understanding of why these processes why these problems actually arise from the people themselves. So here's my question. Would much deeper understanding of these different cultures, for example, especially much deeper understanding of the different cultures in Malaysia will actually help in facilitating unity in Malaysia.
All right. I think they understand one another very well. We used to be quite okay. As I said, we have heard of this before. This is not something new, this so-called division, this ethnic problem, this religious problem, this living together. It's only a fairly recent phenomenon. So, culturally, we are right. We are quite tolerant people. We buka open house, we makan a lot. We have a lot of common things. It's our political leaders who do not want us to be united. You understand? So don't study the people, study the leaders. The leaders wants to make sure you remain takut, you remain this, they play on the fears so that they can divide you and then keep on power. And then make sure you're poor because then they can come and give money. Because if you are comfortable, then you don't need the money. Do they get before election, do they come and give money in Australia? They don't, right? They don't. Why? Because people have money like generally $500 they have, you know, so they don't. But in our country, $500 is a lot of money. So people give money, you know. So what culturally, I think there's nothing wrong with this. Culturally, there's no need to go and study further how the Kadazan live, how the Dara, you know. You study the leaders, and then decide what kind of leaders you are. That's my own thing.
Dato is right there. Basically, leaders posture to the political market. And I think we are still very threat. Socially, we have no problem. But when it comes to politics, somebody just has to exploit your fear. Like language, for example. The moment the government tried to do something to the Chinese school to make it more long national line, DAP will come in. We are selling out. They are trying to change the color of Chinese education, etc. Exploiting fear. So this exploiting racial, religious sentiment doesn't come from the ruling party itself. It comes from both. And past, they used to exploit Islam to the hilt post-Iran revolution. They keep on talking about this is a secular government, this is man-made, and then many issues not supposed to be discussed. Their council of elders decide. Many things are beyond rational. You cannot even think of question, because if you question, you're questioning Islam. Past change their color or take off the mask of Iran revolution after 9/11. 9/11 they put on a more liberal face because the market changed. Suddenly Malays themselves do not want Islamic extremism. So we can see this is basically market. What I agree with Dato' Zahid, but I don't agree we just study the leaders, because politicians, they survive on the market. And basically you see a lot of the oppositions that Dr. Zul today, he is very liberal. At the moment the hardcore pass talk over, then he may be another Dr. Hassan Ali. So, ladies and gentlemen, what is more important is you must participate in politics. Not only the rhetorics, the ideas of it. You must participate, you must make it matter, and you must judge, not based on, you do not pass judgment just based on, like for example now, basically there's a lot of hype, change the government, ubah, etc. What, you must go beyond. What sort of change? How can we manage the change? Are we able to take on the change? Because you are changing in your mindset. But the people on the ground, their mindset is not changed. The problem is, with the advent of this cyber world, many people have changed their mind. The English educator used to say, we are apolitical. They are so proud because they don't get into politics. Suddenly, every one of them have a peace of mind and they speak and they dictate to politicians. You must do this, you must do that. Not realizing on the ground, politicians, like Anwar Ibrahim, will do what the ground dictates. So these are politicians. So I think that is basically my point.
Okay, Doctor.
This is, okay, so just to keep the question short, I think it's a burning question I have, and especially to Dr. Zul and Dr. Zahid. So what would be a potent incentive for Malays to move away from race-based politics? So Dato' T was talking about how away from it. So what would be what would make, Malays, or what we call the people who want this perpetuation of status quo, what would make them want to move out of it?
Why would the Malays want to move away from UMNO?
No, from race-based politics, like defending their own rights, or things like that.
Yeah, that means moving from UMNO. Okay. You see, first Malays must. I think Malays are clever people. That's unlike Dr. Mahathir, who says Malays lazy, forgetful, shameless. I think very highly of my own people. You know, I think Malays are smart, responsible, fair, baik, open house, makan banyak. We have all the good qualities. Plus, Malays are Muslim. Lagi baik. The officers are Malay. They forget that all the prime ministers are Malay. They forget all the deans of the faculties are Malay. The police IGP are Malay. It's already, how much Malay more do you want? And yet, many Malays are poor. If you take the 2000 benchmark I gave you just now, 80% of those households are poor Malays. The Putras in Sabah and Sabah. The education system, whatever the system we have, the Malays are the most unemployable at the moment in terms of percentage. Drug addiction, 85% of the addicts are Malays. So, despite all this special attention and special privilege, so-called, the Malays are left behind. So if the Malays can think, and which they can, and one day they will say, this policy is not good. This policy is not good. Whether they will move to pass depends, as I said, it's a challenge. They have to be brani, don't be like Abno. They must be able to convince the Malays that, don't worry, we'll take care of you. And I think that will happen. Because, as I said, all this fear politics, this bribery politics zaman dulu. So that is why the Malays, being smart people, will move from race-based. It's okay to be race-based, but this is worse than race-based. This is racist-based. you know, it is worse. And these policies are not good for them. It's not good. And I think if you can convince them, and they will be convinced, based on the facts I've given you, Malay society, Malay households will be better off, Malay education will be better off, Malay business will be better off in a more transparent, corrupt-free system. And I think the numbers are already there. As you can see, the election. In fact, UMNO passed lebih kurang lah in terms of vote, popular vote lah, jangan kursi lah. Kursi, there's a different agenda lah. But in terms of popular vote, it's lebih kurang. So the Malays are already there. It's a question of time, and I think how past position itself. So I'm confident that will happen.
Thanks, Dr. You almost stolen all the words from my mouth already. So that's it. The sooner rather than later we have the Malays to shift away from this, the better will be for the whole nation. Because despite the Article 153, Article 3 of the position of Islam in the Federal Constitution, most ironically, the Malays being the majority, they have been again and time and again indoctrinated that they are the ethnic group under siege. Mumbai, no. So immediately they move away from this. I think we will see a lot of changes. And I hope it's going to be soon. Because when we move into needs-based basis, the Malays will be naturally helped. Because they have used this MEP, the never-ending policy. They abuse it. In the name of Malays. It's not really for Malays. The absence of NEP is about poverty eradication, but they have only bring it down to only about 30% equity. And equity is a very, it's a subject you know very well. It's better to be based on asset, it's better to be based on other forms of wealth. But equity, you see 2 billion before, now how much have we left with? Mr. Han? Only 2 billion. Where the rest gone? The Prime Minister himself admitted in Parliament by Tan Sri's, Dato Sri's, Dato, cause all this erosion of the equity holding of the risk. So yes, we would like to really see, a shift in all these very much abused policies of MEP. And this is why Pakatan believe in a needs-based policies. And our politics is politics of principle. We want to believe that, despite whatever that Turkey talks about the AP. Thank you.
I think this one's question is relevant because it can be related back to the question of brain drain. So, a large number of youth in Malaysia remain unregistered as voters, not realizing that they can make a difference. How can political apathy be addressed in Malaysia? What are the measures that can and should be taken to reduce the indifference and ignorance in politics, particularly in the younger generations? So, any one of you can start first. Maybe Dr. T can start if you want to.
You see, I think this trend about registering as voters is good, but you cannot just say, you see, when I was in some of the church circuit, they went around campaigning for registration of voter, but at the same time, very subtly they say register for change, without talking about what sort of change. It's just like what is unfair. Just now, the question was not referred to me about changing race. I think what Jonah is trying to ask is are Malays ready to move away from race-based politics? Are Malays ready to move away from Islam-based politics? Why not religion as a whole, the universal values? Why are we talking about legal system? And then why are we imposing dress codes, must conform, etc.? These are things which cause hardship. And we suffered, as an undergraduate, we suffered that intrusion into our liberty, our life, and also in our relation. We are not even allowed to ask questions because it's an insult to the religion. So what I'm saying is, don't use Malay, don't use Islam, just do it. So this is what is wrong basically with Malaysian. And then now you're saying register, change. What sort of change? PAS can say this today, they can change from post-Iran revolution to 911 liberal. Erdogans are in today, tomorrow the Ustash may take over, etc. So, ladies and gentlemen, if you want to register as voter, it's your first step towards participation. But register with an open mind. You must come in, understand what is Malaysian scenario. Are we real when we say we want to do about the way we race and religion, where the constitution still emphasizes on race and religion, where we have departments in race and religion, where the bureaucrats every day when they talk, they are talking about demi Allah, demi Melayu, and we cannot even say settle them down, water them down. Please consider the non-Malays. And for example, in Kelantan, I am from Pahang. My businessmen moved to Kelantan because they say it's easier to bribe the past people than UMNO people. Yeah, they are moving away. These are all locals. But if I say that openly, MACC cannot prove, you cannot catch them. But this is the political reality on the ground, but we cannot say it. So many things can be said. I just want to summarize. Don't believe the devil is an angel just because he donned an angel's costume. We are human first. We are not angels. And most politicians, they are there for their power. They make use of your sentiment. They make use of... In the past, it's very appealing to use religion, to use language and culture. Later, it is about Malay, Ketuhanan Melayu. Subsequently, it's Ketuhanan Melayu. And basically, the Malays are not ready to move away from these two issues. That is, my point is, if it's real, today Dr. Zhou says, okay, we pass, we don't talk about Islam, we talk about universal values. Don't talk about changing my legal system, because I am very proud of the legal system we have today. And don't brand this legal system is man-made, secular. The kind of speeches that if you hear in the past, now they are saying, I'm nowhere to the Malays say this, to the Chinese say this. Don't insult the Malays and the Chinese. They can tell. It's not as simple as that. Similarly, past when they talk to the Akampok crowd, they talk as if they are the guardian of Islam, not knowing that many of our friends in UMNO are equally religious and more religious. And past, mind you, when the new economic policy, never-ending policy, comes to an end in 1990, past pressure for the equity to be increased to 51%. UMNO youth. It's MCA that stood on the ground. Then Leong Sik Tok leave in protest. And Mahathir called the National Economic Consultative Council to talk about the next policy, new development policy, based on development and not based on race. Unfortunately, the spirit of the development policy was not being implemented because by and large the Malays refused to change the never-ending policy. So don't blame it on MCA per se. And I can tell you, DAP ran away from the National Economic Consultative Council. 75 Bumi, 75 Dong Bumi. Dr. Chandra Muzaffar was there, a lot of Malay liberals. DAP ran away, because they faced with PAS and UMNO youth, who speak with fervor and fire.
Can you conclude that?
Yes, so basically, register as a voter, but open up your mind. Don't be poisoned by saying changing the present regime, you will change everything. What sort of change are you expecting? Are they really genuinely going in for change? Do away with Malay and Islamic. But just in the name of it, no, I've said no, don't trust them. They are not angels, they are human.
Okay, I'm not sure how it...
I think there's already an increase in the interest. I don't know where this Mr. Nigel figures. In fact, there are a lot more voters registered the last election than the previous one. So I see the trend is very encouraging now. I think a lot of young voters already. So it's quite a simple question. The political parties also, despite whatever Dr. Dato said, he also encouraged people to register. And he also campaigned. It's common, you know. It's a common thing to do. Don't worry about that. But I just want to add one more thing as an extension of that. I think the Malays, you know, as I said just now, I think it is not. There are a lot of things said about the Malays. They don't pay their loans, they don't do this. But I think it's always leadership. It's always leadership. I know the slogan, leadership by example, that is what it's lacking. So I don't see the Malays as too extreme, whether as a Muslim or as a Malay. They are quite reasonable. P. Ramlee is the epitome, the quintessential Malay to me. That's why they keep on repeating P. Ramlee movies. Why is it? After 40 years, they keep on repeating. Because that's a Malay. And I think there is still a lot of Malay in Malays today. Despite their rhetoric, speeches, kadang-kadang both sides play extreme speeches, you know. UMNO leaders also talk rubbish, PAS leaders also some of them talk rubbish, you know. So it's common. But Malays as a people, I think, are capable of change. Malays as a people will not tolerate extremism. Malays as a people will not want anything, they want to move forward, I think.
Senator, thanks. I would understand that you don't understand me, Dr. Tia. But I also realize that you also feel to understand Dr. Zaid. Because he said of all the positive traits of Malay, and with Islam is going to be more enhanced. And that's what essentially we are bringing into the politics and the polity of Malaysia. Yeah? But you keep going back. We want to move forward. So this is why I think the generation here, I don't quite agree that there's a lot of apathy among young. The fact that you are all here, you know, so vibrant and with your rigor and verbal, I think the future stands better, for a better Malaysia with all of you. Thank you.
A very engaging discussion, and I hope the spirit of change does not end here. We need to make it continue so that we can really turn the tide. Thank you very much. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.